Swapnil, hi, good to have you with us. How have you been?
Hi, I am fine, thank you. What about you?
Doing very well, Swapnil.
Great.
Excited to have you with us for this session. EdTech is something which has seen phenomenal growth, right? EdTech has seen some, EdTech as an industry has seen phenomenal surge adoption, right? And I think more importantly, this has been a time which has been that of digital transformation, and I think education as a sector has been, a champion when it comes to adopting the technology, right? And that was largely because, um, uh, across education institutions they couldn't have delivered value, right? While of course what happened, right? Something was, an aberration. There was not something which was anticipated. uh, I think the way technologies, filled that gap has been absolutely phenomenal, right? And I think all stakeholders have come together beautifully and have adopted to it, right? And my sense is, I think, we're at a very interesting times because this is going to now serve as a foundation for digital learning as a very mainstream core part of, kids in school growing up, college students, right? Organizations in general. I think this is something which is becoming very institutionalized, right? This is becoming a very integral part of the process of all of these institutions, going forward. With that, right, you're in a very interesting position, Swapnil, because you deal with pretty much all of these segments. You are enabling all of these, players to go out and deliver better value, to their stakeholders, right? So that's because this becomes a very interesting conversation in that sense. But before we do that, Swapnil, before we do that, right, I'd love you to give a quick round of introduction. You've been a working professional, right, who jumped into building this company and has been growing phenomenally, right? You've seen what 300% plus growth ever since pandemic hit. Would love you to talk a little about your journey, and then we move into the conversation on Splashgate.
Absolutely. So prior to starting Splashgain, I worked in the corporate sector for 3 years.
Right.
Then I realized, based on my experience, definitely there is a something missing link in the education sector. And as an individual, I can contribute to that education sector. I can definitely build solutions or platforms around education sector. So
Right.
that was the idea. And then I bootstrapped Sabir Kamath, who is CEO and co-founder, who had joined me immediately after 6 months of the time. And then we raised angel investment, and then we build our team. So basically, it is bootstrap organization with the
Right.
seed funding, and slowly and surely we got a feedback from various customers or stakeholders of the
Right.
education sector, and we were able to build innovative solutions or platforms which is the need of an hour. And
Interesting.
because of COVID, there was a huge disruption in the education
Right.
sector. A lot of things have changed. So prior to COVID, education sector was quite different. Now
Right.
technology adoption has accelerated so much that it is
Right.
likely to continue in an environment even if there is not going to be COVID in the future. But I think a lot of institute, universities, schools, colleges,
Right.
those are going to continue acceleration in terms of technology adoption or acquiring various solutions related to online exam or digital assessments. They are also going to adopt proctoring solutions where they can track remote user who is doing various
Right.
activities or who is attempting the examination process. So I think a lot of things are
Interesting.
changing, and it is going to be the norm now, where hybrid education is likely to play a key role, where education will be a combination of offline as well as online classes.
Very interesting. Swapnil, before we get into talking about all of these, the newer the change that has come in, right? And of course, how are we going to see it going forward, right? Because India is a fairly complicated market and a complex market, and we have a tendency of going back to normal, right? Uh, and I think all of us in a certain form and way are itching to go back, right? We are a very touch and feel market in many ways, right? But before we talk all of that, right, I'd love you to take us through. You've been at it, right, for the longest time. Uh, would love you to help us understand, what's the scale of Splashgain at this point of time, right? I mean, how many people? You are across not just India, and you're not just catering to Indian institutions. You're actually a global company in many ways, right? Tell us a little more about that, right? How has that journey been?
Great. So yes, we started with the focus on Indian context,
Right,
but as we move forward, we started getting inquiries from global markets as well.
right,
And we were very happy to serve the global markets because our platform is completely specific to language, where any Middle East person who want to use our platform, that person can use Arabic languages. So it is completely language driven, where you can use the our platform in the regional languages like Marathi, Hindi, Gujarati as well.
right,
So we also have opened our offices in the Middle East, Dubai. where
Interesting.
our salesperson, vice president of global markets, he sits over here there.
Interesting.
And we also acquire various clients in the Middle East, like even in case of Africa, as well, we have made inroads
Right.
in North Africa as well as in South Africa, even Kingdom of Lesotho. They are
Mhm.
also using our platform to define their question paper generation process. And even we have a client base across Malaysia, Singapore, even Japan. So a lot of
Right.
Indian schools who are globally expanding, they are also our major customers.
Interesting.
And we also have registered our office in the USA as well. And definitely we are looking forward to have more and more partnerships with the tech players where they can
Right.
use our APIs or they can integrate our platform or various services within their applications. So a lot of discussions are happening, and we are definitely going to expand in US markets as well. So currently, yes, predominantly it is India driven, and
Mhm.
our international revenue is also increasing as we move forward. And in the in the upcoming FY, it is definitely going to contribute significantly as we move forward.
Amazing. Amazing, Swapnil. Amazing. Swapnil, when I look at your product portfolio, right, it's a fairly diverse product portfolio, right? And it's a portfolio which is calibrated to many segments, right? I mean, and when we talk of say education, right, or learning in general, we have K-12, which is a very very fast moving segment, right, and which is an extremely it's a very demanding segment in many ways, right? You have higher ed education institutions again have seen we've seen phenomenal adoption in of technology, right? Especially during this time. They've always been technology savvy. Prep markets have been another ones, right? And now even corporates, for example, are very very diligently and very in a very focused way prioritizing learning and development for people at large, right? Because now we are talking about distributed workforces, right? Now when I look at your portfolio, right, it's a fairly diverse portfolio that you have, right? You have platform like Eklavya, you have remote proctoring, something that you kind of alluded to. You have on-screen marking solutions. You have
Right.
e-Pravesh learning management systems, right? Now, which is the segment that you're going after? I mean, how are you prioritizing? Because these are absolutely separate animals, if I can call it that, right? And
Uh,
they're fairly complicated in many ways, right? So how are you prioritizing, all of these, right? And which is the one where you're seeing, the fastest movement,
okay.
right? Would love to understand that.
So if you take a look at our portfolio, there is an online assessment. There is a
Mhm.
remote proctoring. So
Right,
remote proctoring is nothing but additional add-on service for the online examination process.
right.
So using remote proctoring, you can capture audio, video, images, or candidate movement. So that
Hmm.
is the add-on to the assessment process. And on-screen evaluation system is also kind of assessment solution only, where
Sure.
any physical answer sheets, where
Mhm.
pen and paper-based exams are happening, those get scanned and those gets uploaded, and our uh, automated evaluation system which assist examiners for the evaluation purpose.
Right.
So we are building a lot of AI enabled tools, so where examiners can easily evaluate, or our recommendation engine can easily provide, okay, this
Sure.
is a theory answer and this has got say 10 marks. So out
Mhm.
of that, whatever candidate has written, you need to allocate say 5 marks. So all those recommendation engines are going to play key role. So it is add-on to the assessment engine itself.
Okay.
So if you take a look at our various platforms, so predominantly it is driven by the assessment, where Ekalavya is online assessment platform.
Right.
Remote proctoring we provide as an add-on service.
Mhm.
Plus on-screen evaluation also provides various APIs and integrated service where any traditional pen and paper-based exams are happening. And
Mhm.
if you would like to uh, accelerate result processing, where if you would like to take help of our recommendation engine, where automated subjective evaluation can happen, where engine can learn the responses written by the
Sure.
candidate and it can be provided. So those are quite integrated platforms centered
Mhm.
around assessment. And
Mhm.
now we are adding to that where learning management system is also going to play a role, where
Interesting.
student can attend live classes or they can watch the offline videos as well. It can be automatically marked. A similar requirement is coming in the corporate segment as well.
Mhm.
So even some of the corporates are asking, can you track whether our employees are watching our training videos or not?
Right.
If
Interesting.
that video is of 60 minutes, can you ensure that they are watching for 60 minutes? If they are not watching for 60 minutes, if they are watching for 10 minutes, can you provide some analytics that, okay, this person has watched video only for 2 minutes, 5 minutes.
Right.
So learning process has not completed that way. So a lot of analytics add-on or AI is enabling those platforms where you can automatically track individual performance of the student. You can provide a personalized assessment. You can get a lot
Interesting.
of analytics data. So that is how we are moving forward.
Swapnil, is it fair to say that, and is it a fair understanding, right? That I'm building, as we speaking, right? Uh, that there's this one product which is, say, universal, right, for how it's been built, and now it can be plugged into any of these segments that we kind of spoke about, right? So you're not necessarily prioritizing. It's basically one solution which can be implemented across multiple environments, right? And that's essentially how you're kind of playing it, right? But I would love to understand it at a revenue level, right? In terms of which is the segment which is actually the fastest growing and contributing highest to the growth of Splashgain as an organization. Also, why do I ask that question? It becomes important, right? Is because it gives a reflection of the adoption, right? When you speak of education as a whole, right? Even LMS for that matter, right? Which is say corporates. For some reason, these have been very slow moving engagements, right? They've been very, very bureaucratic in many ways, right? So what I want you to help me understand is that how has that shift really happened, right? Especially post COVID, I think the orientation is completely changed, right? Would love to understand that the growth in the area in line with the revenue side improvement, right? That you've seen and experienced during this period.
I think in terms of growth, when we started, when we bootstrapped, we were focusing on education sector largely.
Sure.
So 80% of our client or revenue base comes from the education sector, and 20% or it is likely to increase in the future, but 20 to 25 is coming from the corporate sector.
Right.
And basically, what is happening nowadays is everyone want plug and play kind of solution.
Right.
You should be able to easily integrate your solution within their own system.
Sure.
So that's where I think a lot of unicorns are coming, like Zoho CRM. If you consider other players in this segment, where they are providing plug and play kind of solution, and that is getting integrated with the organizations quite easily.
Right.
Because another focus area for us is we are building SaaS-based platform, where software as a service.
Right.
So if you are going to have only 50 users, 100 users, you will be charged only proportionate to the 100 users. If you are going to have 10,000 users who are going to use the system, then you will be charged according to usage. So I think there is a lot of flexibility involved in the pricing model or business model. And if you are going to deploy such a solution for say 5,000 or 10,000 rupees or something, that is quite cost effective for them to get started. And once they understand the value proposition that is being provided, then they go for the integration as well. So our system has been integrated with various corporate system or recruitment systems as well. Even in case of education, we have integrated with their CRM system or ERP systems as well. So seamless integration or plug and play kind of solution is definitely going to be the future.
Interesting. So, I think with a lot of what you're highlighting right now, there are many players who are offering very similar looking solutions, right? Might be or might not be as effective, for example, where you stand possibly, right? But there are many people who are offering the same solution, right? Now that, and this is when you look at, for example, learning management systems, assessment management systems, right? Now this is a space which has been, with so many players, right, has largely been commoditized, right? Where the ability of a player to charge a premium has kind of reduced substantially, right? And like I said, it's gotten commoditized, right? It's become a factor of how many students are there, and institutions land up negotiating because there are many other options that are available, right? That's one side of the complexity, right, of the environment that you are in. That becomes very difficult to differentiate yourself. The other problem is that there are many global players who come in, right? So for example, we've seen Microsoft come up with a tool. Zoom has, for example, come up with a tool where institutions have actually used it to communicate all of pretty much effectiveness, right? I mean, Microsoft is slightly more holistic, right? And I as a parent have a very first hand view of things, right? Organizations have kind of adopted to it, right, for their requirements. How are you differentiating yourself, say, vis-a-vis existing competition which offers, say, similar looking solutions like the ones you have, and then the slightly more mature organizations that are offering now integrated solutions, and this is something which is becoming a mainstay, right? They got a phenomenal opportunity to really scale their product portfolio around these times, right? And organization institutions were very happy to sort of adopt to that, largely because of the consistency of experience that they could offer, right? What's your sense of it? How do you, as the founder, look at this, the kind of emerging complexity and the expectations from the consumer side?
I think one advantage associated with competition is that your market is definitely going to grow, because competitors are also going to communicate to the client, okay, these features are there, these features are there. So when you are going to approach the particular institute, so you don't have to start from the scratch. That is one thing. Another important aspect is innovation or research and development.
Right.
So as an organization, our entire most of the focus area is we have research and development team, dedicated team which works on various algorithms, which keeps on inventing the various new things.
Interesting.
Which works. And in case of Indian context, I think if you take a look at larger organizations, they may not be able to crack tier 2, tier 3 cities where internet connectivity might be limited. But in case of our platform, we have built in the such a way that it can be cost effective as well as it can work on the lower internet speed, like say 0.1 Mbps as well.
Okay.
So our platform has been used by in the rural India as well as metro cities, and it is quite user friendly. So yes, I agree. Competition will be there, but advantage associated with that, it can increase your market. It will increase overall edtech market, and based on continuous innovation and your capability to adopt or capability to respond to the customer needs, I think that is going to play key role. And apart from that, I think customer service is also one area where we are also focused, where we try to resolve queries associated with customer in a record time, because that is one of the differentiating area where customers are becoming demanding and customers require instant responses to their concerns or their queries. So those two areas are quite essential for our organization. One is research and development, and one is customer responsiveness, where we should be able to respond to the customer in a record time.
Very
So
interesting.
those based on two areas, we try to cash on the competition.
Very interesting. So, I mean, there are some very interesting points that you kind of highlighted, right, in the process. Now, the biggest of all challenges, right, when we talk of ed tech, right, what we see in the market is a lot of basically, basically crevices and discontinuities that exist, and there are models that are being built around it, right? We have very little when it comes to say innovation which is happening as far as ed tech is concerned, as far as technology is concerned, where, for example, either delivery is being improved or say the engagement is being improved and so on and so forth, right? There is little on that front, right? I mean, and trust you me, and I've been talking to many ed tech founders, right? I haven't come across disruptions when it comes to all of that, right? I think everybody's continuously focusing on improving, the connectivity of sorts, right? And I think it's a land grab right now with how I look at it. My question to you is, and this is not only limited to say the startups and the technology companies in the space, right? Innovation also gets killed because the process of buying is very bureaucratic, right? It's a very long tail sales cycle, right? It's a very long, it's a very time consuming and effort consuming sales cycle that exists in educational ecosystem across the board, right? What's your sense of it, right? When you talk of innovation, what kind of innovation are we talking about here, right? And second, right, is this innovation being appreciated and being adopted, or is this more a frill that gets you a foot in the door and possibly helps you in better conversion? Where are we on that front?
Definitely, innovation-wise, a lot of private education institutes, schools are very much enthusiastic now because most of them are forcefully becoming tech savvy.
Right.
So a couple of years ago, they were not tech savvy, like some of the professors who were not tech savvy, but now they are able to conduct live classes. They are able to understand how to use system technology.
Right.
So they are quite accepted. They are accepting our solutions, or we are discussing various ideas.
Right.
So just now we have also filed a couple of patents associated with technology. So one thing which I already discussed, like subjective exam evaluation or subjective descriptive exam. So if you can provide some recommendation engine or artificial intelligence driven algorithms, then whatever time consuming process that happens, like after exam is completed, it takes almost 60 to 70 days to declare the result.
Right.
If you are able to declare result instantly after completion of exam, I think that will be win-win situation for student as well as for education institution.
Right.
And similarly, we are also improving or innovating in terms of Viva or oral exams or video exam. So imagine a scenario where suppose examiner want to conduct Viva exam for 100 users simultaneously.
Right.
Technology can empower that, where the student can record their audio as well as video answers, and it can be automatically evaluated by recommendation engine, as well as the examiner can easily watch the recorded answers provided by the student. So institution as well as corporates are quite receptive to such ideas where disruption is happening. Technology is going to play a key role, and AI driven algorithms or various artificial intelligence driven data insights which are going to be provided by the technological solution that will definitely help them to proactively understand whether their education delivery is happening properly, whether students are able to understand it or not. And in terms of flexibility also, like they can define examination process, assessment process
Mhm.
based on the personalization, based on the whatever knowledge acquired by the student.
Very interesting.
So quite a few things are happening right
Interesting.
now, and in future you will see a lot more innovation, and it is definitely going to become norm where education sector will keep on reinventing the things with the help of AI as well as machine learning algorithms.
Interesting, interesting. So, well, there is a very important point that you kind of highlighted, right? And trust you me, this was not part of of the discussion that we wanted to have, right? I mean, this was a discussion which was to be more macro, right, in terms of what are the trends playing out, right? But I think that you actually highlighted a very pertinent point. Which is that of the impact, right? In terms of how the ability of a user, that could be a student, that could be say a professional, right? On the other side of that system, the ability of them to absorb, right? Which essentially means that the entire delivery system, and that's essentially what the fulcrum of the delivery system is based on, right? The efficiency of the the teacher, and the ability of the student to absorb what's being taught, right? Now there is very little which is happening, right? And I think you're possibly what you're alluding to is that there's a huge emphasis that you're kind of putting on that, right? Through say AI driven systems where you are making assessments, right? Of how that, if for example lecture is being delivered, right? How it's being absorbed in the process, stuff like that. Tell us a little more about that, right? I mean, how are you cracking it, right? Because for me, impact is the most important thing, right? A lot of inefficiency, for example, while of course there's been adoption of technology which has happened, right? A lot of inefficiency is coming into systems largely because of not being able to crack this communication process, right? Tell me a little more in terms of how you are enabling this, right?
Mhm.
And when you talk of AI, right, and when you talk of absorption, I would love to understand the process of how you're doing it.
See, in terms of AI, what happens is like if a particular candidate or particular student is attempting the examination process, and that person has attempted 5, 6 exams or 10 examinations, and then what we can do, we can provide a lot of insights like how much time taken by the particular student to attempt particular question,
Okay.
how much total time taken by the student, and
Mhm.
if it is descriptive exam, what is the style of writing, or
Okay.
what are the things written by the student. And if we are able to come up with machine learning algorithms, whether student is above average, below average, lacking in terms of particular concepts, because we have a tagging associated with each individual question. That question
Okay.
is related to this difficulty level for particular topic, for particular concept, whether it is conceptual question, definition oriented question, or it is generic question.
Right.
So all those classifications are already been built in the system. So
Hmm.
whenever students or particular person is going to appear for the digital assessment process, we can easily tag the data. We can easily come up with recommendation. Okay, this person is having a better knowledge about this system,
Hmm.
but this person lacks a particular knowledge of a particular area. Based on that, definitely education institute can take proactive steps if they are able to understand overall batch performance. Like if there is a batch of say 400 students and most of the students have not performed for a particular concept, like say integration in case of
Hmm.
mathematics, then they will realize, okay, there is a need of an hour where we need to improve our delivery related to education for particular topics, say integration, derivatives, or any kind of concept. And similarly, our tool has also been effectively utilized in case of corporate world as well, where if they want to select suitable candidate during hiring, they can come up with various innovative assessment processes. And they can
Hmm.
ask various questions, and they can generate inference whether that candidate is suitable to be considered for the next round of interview or not.
Hmm.
Because the hiring process is also quite time-consuming process, and if it is empowered with
It
the
is.
help of technology, then why not? So imagine a scenario if as a HR person you want to take 100 interviews
Right.
today itself. So what is traditional process? You will have to align some team leads.
Right.
Okay, please take his interview at 4 p.m. Please take his interview at 5 p.m. something. But with the help of technology, you can simultaneously take interview of all those 100 candidates right away, and then you can evaluate at later point of time, and it can also be empowered with machine learning algorithms.
Interesting. Interesting.
So those
So
are the use cases where we are trying to work on.
very interesting. And I think what I am, the sense that I'm getting in the process, right, is that the process of you, of your organization, of your leadership team, right, is that of engagement when you're building something, right? You're not necessarily doing it in a silo, which is just so much more important. And trust you, Ms. Swapnil, there are many questions that I would love to sort of engage with you on, right?
Right.
Especially in terms of how you're kind of doing it. Deeper usage of AI, ML, right, in learning overall. Because this is an area which requires very deep emphasis and an ongoing conversations, right? But I'm going to save some of that for our next conversation, right? So I'm going to move to say there's something very important that you kind of highlighted, right? When you're talking about competition and your focus towards tier two cities, right? Now, when you look at tier two cities, there are two very typical challenges that come in, right? One is that tier two cities, when you talk of the educators, right? They've not necessarily been very technology savvy, right? Which essentially means
Mhm.
across many conversations that I've had, with a lot of other founders, right? What they've alluded to is that their strategy of product creation, product designing for a tier two, tier three India is inspired from WhatsApp, right? Because largely because of the
Mhm.
population, the adoption of WhatsApp, right? The thesis comes from that, right? So what I would love to understand is how are you essentially um, ensuring that the educators in tier two and tier three are at pace. That's number one. And that possibly could be, you could give me a sense in terms of your product features, right? In terms of how you're going on designing these products. The other thing that I want to understand about tier two and tier three is that tier two and tier three India operate at a lower cost base, right? They're not
Mhm.
necessarily able to say price their engagement with their students, right? The way tier A cities and tier one institutions do, right? Which essentially means that their ability to pay is very restricted, right? How do you kind of tackle that, right? Or is this a system which has been designed in a way where it's efficient, right? And it helps education institutions deliver value at a lower cost, right?
Right.
Where are we on that front? I'd love to understand that.
Okay. So if you talk about tier one or tier two cities, there are two things. One is yes, they are becoming tech savvy because of usage of various social media, social networks, WhatsApp. They are using mobile phones. They
Sure.
have a smartphone. If you talk about smartphone penetration in India,
Mhm.
I think almost 70% of the users are using smartphone.
Sure.
And so they are tech savvy. They are using various systems. Another
Sure.
important aspect I think we are also trying to focus is providing solutions in the regional language. So
Mhm.
that is also going to be like key role. So if you talk about national education policy, even government is coming up with various ideas where engineering can be taught in the regional language, or
Right.
there will be focus on regional language to taught even technology or technical subjects as well.
Right.
So if we want to penetrate in tier two or tier three, definitely if you are able to provide solutions in their own language, where user interface will be in their preferred language, then adaptability can be increased. So yes, we
Interesting.
have also already launched our platform in 5 to 6 languages,
Right.
including some Indian languages as well as international languages. And response has been quite positive because they feel that okay, system is built for them. It is personalized for them. It
Right.
is not compulsory that they have to use system which is English language driven, but it
Right.
is regional language driven.
Mhm.
So moving forward, I think if you want to, if any organization want to penetrate tier two, tier three cities, then definitely user friendliness can be improved. And if you are able to provide solutions in the regional language, I think that will definitely help to accelerate adoption associated with technology in tier two and tier three cities.
Interesting, interesting. And your and their ability to price it. I mean, how are you taking care of that? Because as an institution, you always want to upprice your product, right? But and like I said, right? I mean, as soon as you go beyond the first 5% of say education institutions, and say K-12s, for example, right? Um, uh, Even higher education for that matter, right? The number is going to be slightly higher, right? Their ability to pay is very limited, right? How are you tackling that, right? I mean, how are you ensuring that
Right,
the AOVs go on to become slightly higher, right?
correct.
What's the strategy there?
I think in terms of business model, there can be innovation. There, so
Hmm.
what we are adopting strategy is software as a service model where we ask them to pay per student or per assessment or per usage basis.
Right.
So if they want to try it out for say limited period of time, if they want to try it for only for 100 students, then they have to pay very paltry amount. So
Sure.
they are very open to that idea. where we are not asking to invest a very huge amount, like you
Right.
want to deploy ERP solution or you want to deploy end-to-end system,
Right.
where it will take deployment will take 6 months time, 2 months time, or large period of time.
Hmm.
But what we are providing is value proposition, plug and play kind of solution, where
Right.
if you subscribe, tomorrow you can start using, or rather immediately today itself you can start using the system. You can experience it, you can try it for 100 users. You have to pay only for per usage basis. Like if 100 students are appearing for one assessment, so you have to pay say 100 into say 5 rupees or something, 10 rupees, whatever. So investment is quite minimalistic. If you reinvent a business model, if you come up with various innovative business model where you have to pay per usage basis, then I think it is acceptable in the market.
Interesting. So, Abdul, when we talk about tech, right, there are newer models that are coming up, right? And in a way, I'm talking about the newer generation and a newer world competition, which is kind of now coming up, right? Where models like yourself, right, which have been traditionally uh, been, and they become acceptable, right, and they've been
Mhm.
in a way sort of traditional, right, where you go on to price per user participation, so on and so forth, right, for education institutions. The new models that are coming up are essentially venture funded models, right, where the cost of SaaS is literally becoming zero, right, and a lot of these players are now looking to monetize the student on the platform, right, in a very different way. They've also become, from being a cost center as a model integrated with education institutions, now they're also becoming a revenue center for these education institutions, right? Um, some of these players have actually raised very large rounds of capital, and very quickly so, right? And like I
Okay.
said, right, they're becoming a very smart universe of sorts, right? Where uh, like I said, the cost of technology, which used to be an impediment, right? Because there used to be many layers of technical decision, have actually reduced. Uh, these are models
Right.
which are being adopted very, very quickly by education institutions, right? I mean, this is something that we're seeing right now in the K-12 category. Possibly, we'll start to see this in the higher ed category as well, and so on and so forth, right? What's your sense of it, right? These are newer models that are coming up, um, and they're disrupting how adoption happens, right? The good part is, like I said, for education institutions, this is not a cost center anymore. This is actually becoming a revenue center. The onboarding is much faster vis-a-vis, say, a traditional player, right? Who's
Right. Right.
offering, say, solutions which, say, like the one matching the kind of portfolio that you have, right? How are you looking at that, right? I mean, how do you prepare yourself to tackle that? Because you know, as an organization, you've shaped yourself up over a period of time, right? All of your resources, right? Be it people, be it relationships with the existing clients, have been calibrated in a certain form and way, right?
Mhm.
How are
Right.
you seeing this change in trend?
Right.
That is now kind of emerging very, very fast.
Okay, so in terms of like education, there are two models which are predominantly happening. One is B2B, another is B2C.
Sure.
So B2B is like you are having a tie-up with education institute, higher education authority,
Right.
and they are providing service with the help of technology. And B2C model is other place like they are directly interacting with students, or
Sure.
they are onboarding students on their platform directly,
Right.
and students are making payment directly to the platform in order to learn something, in order to get assess themselves. So those two models are predominant. And one thing that is happening in the future, or it is already started happening, is where technology players are signing MOUs, or they are doing collaboration with higher education institutions or universities, or even some of the boards like
Sure.
examination boards, where they want to do collaboration, they want to do long-term association with the organization.
Hmm.
Because what is happening with the education institutions, they do not have full-time CIO, or they do not have technology director position within their portfolio.
Right.
Now they are realizing that okay, if
Right.
we want to reinvent the things, we need to do have a tie-up with technology companies, and simultaneously we should build our
Interesting.
director technology, or we should have a full-time CIO position.
Sure.
That is completely missing in the education context. But right now, technology players, so those who have edge or those who have built user-friendly platforms, they are doing various tie-ups. They are signing MOUs with universities, and it is going to be collaboration. So
Interesting.
education will not be limited like okay, you have to
Right.
rely on particular university, but that university will collaborate with technology players, and they are going to take it forward in a partnership manner. So those partnerships are already happening. There is a
Interesting.
lot of things which are happening. We are also having a discussion with various education institution,
Right.
universities. We have also signed some of the MOUs with universities for such kind of collaboration.
Very
And
interesting.
yes, if any technology company want to improve stickiness, or if they want to have a long-term association with universities or education institutions, they need to collaborate with this collaboration model itself, where they can cash on or they can share the revenues associated with the students. And basically, it's a scalable
Interesting.
model where education institute need not have to build huge buildings. If they want to adapt additional 5,000
Interesting.
students, okay, they need to do a lot of capital expenditure. Now
Interesting.
definitions are changing, right?
Very interesting. So you'll actually walk me into my next sort of a question, right? Uh, I mean, we've seen COVID, right? And we've seen the disruption that COVID kind of did, right? And we've, seen the change in heart and mind, right? Of, like I said, stakeholders at large, right? Who've been involved in the education ecosystem, learning and development overall, right? What's your sense of it, right? Do you think as we get beyond this, right? As say, for example, we adapt and adopt to Corona as the normal part of our life, right? Do you think India as a market, we're going to go back, right? Because a lot of stakeholders that you're possibly dealing with are people who've already made a very large capital investment in creating infrastructure, right? Not utilizing that infrastructure is causing a lot of trouble, right? And you know what I mean, right? It's an emerging complexity, right? While of course they understand that technology is something which is becoming mainstream, a lot of them are essentially in denial, right? They're waiting for things to get back to normal, right? Students to be coming back to uh, the large campuses that have been built, or employees to be getting back into organizations, right? What's your sense of it? How do you see this market
Okay.
emerging going forward, right? Do you think there's going to be a contraction in demand? Do you think it's going to plateau out, or do you think it's going to continue to, you're going to have a dream run, right? What's your sense of it? How do you cut
Correct,
it?
correct. I think based on my discussion, I interacted with a lot of school owners or principals, higher
Right.
education authority. So what they are telling is that yes, online education is scalable, it works, but when you talk about like collaboration, or if you want to do some teamwork, or
Right.
student want to do some creative work, or they need to understand problem solving, then I think physical classes is an essential thing.
Sure.
So definitely in terms of school going children, I think if you talk like someone entering in first standard and going out in 10th standard, and if he's going to be 100% in online mode, I think that
Right.
person will face a lot of issues in real life,
Hmm.
because real life is all about collaboration, interaction,
Right.
interpersonal activities, how you
Right.
interact with the team, how
Right.
you understand various behavioral aspects. So education is not going to be 100% online, but it will move in the hybrid mode, where some of the classes will be conducted in an online mode, some of the classes will be are going to happen in an offline mode. It is a must, because if
Interesting.
you want to have various events, annual events, social events, which happens even in corporates as well as schools.
Right.
If you take it out, I think then there will be a lot of problem to develop leadership capabilities, or overall personality development might not happen. So going forward, even in case of corporates, those who are doing work from home, I think they are also shifting in a hybrid mode, where
Right.
at least couple of days you need to come to the organization, where we need to do brainstorming, we need to understand what is happening, we
Right.
need to interact within the team members. Similarly, in case of schools as well, it is going to be hybrid mode, where some of the things will happen in an offline mode, but some of the things can happen in an online mode.
Interesting.
So imagine a guest lectures, or a specific person who is situated at say New Delhi,
Right.
and that person want to teach students situated at say Mumbai. I think in that case, no need of travel. You can conduct online lectures. So
Right.
it is a win-win. So a hybrid model is definitely going to come up. It may settle down at some point of time, but technology innovation is going to play key role, even in case of hybrid model, how
Interesting.
it is going to be done. Right.
Super. So, Abdul, we're towards the end of our conversation, at least this leg, right? And I would love to have you with us much sooner, where we, of course, discuss many, many more aspects, right? When it comes to, say, engagement, impact assessment, and these are some very, very critical issues, right? When we talk of learning overall across the spectrum.
Right.
But, my second last question in this particular episode, in this particular session,
Okay.
is what are the next 2 years like, right, for Splashgain? You've seen phenomenal growth, you've seen phenomenal success. You've built some very thick relationships with very critical stakeholders in the entire scheme of things, right?
Right.
What are the next 2 years like for you as an organization? What are the milestones that you've set for yourself, for the leadership, to be achieving?
Absolutely. So I think we are growing at a 300% year on year for last couple of years. Definitely,
Right.
we would like to continue with that. Maybe in the next financial year, we have set a target of 100 crore, achieving our top line of 100 crore. So
Interesting.
we are having a discussion with various investors in
Right.
order to raise funds. So within maybe in the next quarter, we will be able to raise funds. We will be able
Interesting.
to declare to the media as well. But yes, in terms of education, our revenue is 80% contribution comes from the education, 25% is coming from the corporates.
Right.
Going forward, definitely we would like to expand our horizon or our services in the corporate segment, where we
Interesting.
are trying to build separate department or separate entity which will cater to the innovations related to corporate assessments
Right.
or corporate recruitment, automation. And yes, even in case of higher education, we are definitely going to improve our R&D expenditure. We are going to invest more in research and development
Right.
so that we can come up with innovative solutions. And
Super.
yes, going forward, we are going to have lots of tie-up with the collaborators or various technology companies as well.
Super. Super. So, Phil, my last question, right? And I this is essentially a question which is very personal to, I think, every founder. Every founder's journey is very unique, right? There's always some learning that they have to give to, I think, fellow entrepreneurs, right? You know, and we believe that there is, one can, just avoid so many more mistakes, right? If you hear to what people have to say, who've been
Right,
through a similar curve, right? What
right.
would suggestion and advice be? I'd love to hear from you on that
Yes,
one, right?
I
That you
think
want to give
yeah,
out to fellow entrepreneurs.
absolutely. So couple of things. Even I made a mistake. I can say
Right,
right from the start, you have a mentor. There should be at least one mentor or 1 to 5, I would say,
right,
in each space. You need to have a mentor in finance domain. You need to have a mentor in whatever domain that you are working.
right.
So if you are working in manufacturing, have a mentor who is in that domain. It helps because whenever you are going low in the corporate world or in startups, it is always uncertain. You
Right,
can always go to your mentor, get the guidance, and get started.
right.
So if you are starting, definitely keep in mind you should have some mentors
Interesting.
who can guide you. And there are a lot of people who are approachable. Initially, also I thought like people may not help you or they are not approachable. But if you approach them and ask them that can you mentor our organization, and if you consistently follow them, they give very positive thing. Another aspect is funding is not essential to success.
Right,
Most of the founders feel that okay, if they get funding, then only they will succeed.
right.
But there are a lot of bootstrap organizations which are doing quite well. They are in Fortune 500. They have not taken any kind of funding. Even I
Right.
realized in my journey, it is not the funding. Your clients are going to fund your business.
Absolutely.
Your business model has to be centered around that.
Right.
If your client is able to provide you the revenue, then it will get automatically funded. So you don't have to rely on external funding. So instead of focusing your energy on external funding, you can focus on problem solving. So what your customers are
Interesting.
saying. And third thing is, I think you need to start small. You need to focus on only one or two problems. Do not try to solve all the problems in the universe.
Right,
That is a mistake even I committed in my journey. Then
right.
I realized, okay, I think we need to be focused on particular thing, and then results started coming to me. So I think those three things will definitely help any founder
Interesting.
to succeed.
Interesting. So, Phil, with that, on that note, a lot of pragmatism, a lot of practicality, right? And I think, you've had a very unique journey, right? Well, of course, you had some, you took early funding, right? But you've largely, if we crack it down, right, you've operated and you've built this business as a bootstrap business, and you're doing phenomenally well, right, from a top line standpoint, right? Of course, those are numbers that are private, and and we'll keep that reserved, right? But I think it's been a phenomenal journey. I think what is outstanding, right, about how you build Splashgain is the ethos, right? Is the integrity, and I think is the approach of ensuring that the stakeholders are very critical part, integral part of your process of building a product, right? Because the insights that are coming from there just help you understand priorities better, right? And I think in a way, crowdsourcing uh, ideas for your future growth is possibly the best way for I think any organization, right? I think it just takes too much of pressure off you, right? Of and and most founders tends to build in silos, right? In anticipation that this is something which is required, not necessarily going out and talking, right?
Mhm.
I think talking becomes very, very important. I think that's something which has stood out in this conversation. And I think that's possibly, like I said, right, very integral part of your overall organizational structure that you've built, right? With that, Swapnil, this has been a phenomenal conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time out. I look forward to having you with us much sooner. And like I said, right, where we discuss more on impact, more on assessments, and more on how learning is shaping up, right? Because
Right.
now there are just too many channels, there is just too much information, right? And how education system has to now pick up the rails and integrate all of this information that people across all levels and all cities and markets are exposed to.
Right. Right.
I think that needs to change completely, right? And I think you have a very large role to play because you are empowering many of these institutions to go and deliver through technology, right? And I'm going to reserve all of that for our next conversation. But Swapnil, thank you so much for joining us. It was lovely to have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. I think your questions were quite insightful. I got to learn many things and looking forward to more such interactions with you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Swapnil. Bye.